All right, everybody, welcome to another Friday night Finance Friday wealth creation course. We come to you guys every week talking about money, wealth, personal finance, financial literacy. I am Jerry Fetta, owner, founder, CEO of Wealth DynamX. And if you guys are tuning in on Zoom, great to see everybody here. If you're on Facebook, good to see you. Make sure that you like this, you share it, you get it out there. If you're tuning in for the very first time, I want to welcome you. A lot of you guys are repeat visitors, people that have watched before. You tune in regularly. It's good to see everybody. And we're going to talk tonight about spending money. Okay. We talk a lot about earning, saving, investing. I want to talk about spending tonight. I think it's an important topic to cover. Now, before I dive into this, I want to cover a couple of ground rules. We do these every week. Number one, if I go over anything that doesn't make sense to you, make sure you ask questions. We're not going to cover a lot of great technical detail tonight. It's very much a conceptual course. So there shouldn't be a lot of things we get into that don't make sense from a technical standpoint. So not a lot of, fancy words, complex mathematical formulas. And really that's all money and finance is numbers and vocabulary, right? If we know math, if we know vocabulary, we can understand finances. Second thing is I want you to have a purpose set aside for being here. Keep it in mind. Why am I here? Why am I watching this? What is my intention with being on this course and on this training right now? If you're watching live, think of that right now. If you're on the replay, pause, get that idea, and then continue onward. And I really want you to link this with application, right? We think about, again, the topic of spending money, right? Okay, so this applies to all of us. We all have finances, we all spend. And so when we think about this, we should all be able to think about, okay, how does this apply to me? But I'm going to spin it a little bit different, okay? Now, lastly, make sure that you have the mindset of being a producer, not a consumer. We're not here just to hang out and to be like, hey, I went to course. I was part of the Wealth DynamX group. I fit in with the clique and it's a social thing. Love it if that's what you're getting from this, but my goal is to help you with finances. Okay. So I can't do that if all you do is consume the information and don't do anything with it, which goes back to points number 1 and 2. Right now, this course tonight, I think is going to be great because I don't think that this is a topic that gets talked about very often, especially in the realm of finances. And I want to kind of start with my backstory on the topic of spending. Okay. Now, I grew up in a family that was like very low class. We were not high income. I think my family's household income was like $20,000 or $30,000 a year. Right. And so spending money was not really something we were big on. We were penny pinchers, right? We were coupon people. We were food bank people. We were free lunch at school people. And so, being thrifty was something that was instilled in me as a kid growing up. And as an adult, it was something that I don't even think I made the intentional decision to do. It was just part of who I was because that's what I saw my parents doing, right? That's what I saw my family doing. And so, with that, I can remember times where we waited in line at the food bank in the middle of winter to save, $3 to get a free box of cereal instead of going to the store and buying one, or, turning off the lights, turning off the heat in order to save on the energy bill, right? Or, and that was normal to me. Like the idea of, buying a new car, totally out of my universe. Like we never did that. That was never something we would consider doing. My parents wouldn't do that. And so that was like not even in my world of possibilities. So when I thought about money and finances and expenses, I thought about live below your means, constrict the expenses down, try not to spend money on things. Don't spend frivolously. Meant, if it was more than bare necessities, don't do it. Right. And I want to cover that because I think with finances, a lot of us naturally gravitate to that. Right. There's really two schools of people. Naturally, people that tend to spend more and be more frivolous. And then there's the school of people that's like, hey, I'm going to be very conservative. And so I think a lot of my clientele are naturally people that are more conservatives. We're formerly, maybe Dave Ramsey followers, or, we've been budgeters and we had some kind of a knack for personal finances where it's like, hey, this wealth dynamic stuff makes sense. Right. But that trait of don't spend money and constrict, it really is kind of like almost, I don't want to say subconscious, but it almost is. It's just there and it appears in our behavior. Sometimes we don't realize it's there and that we're doing it. And there are times where that's helpful and there's times where that's not helpful. Right. So I want to talk about tonight, spending money for the creation of wealth. Right. And we have this thing that I talk about. It's called the triangle of wealth. And it looks like this. We have this triangle and we talk about earn, and we talk about save, and we talk about invest. And these are usually the 3 main things that you hear about, right? And so with this, like those are direct indicators, meaning if I push up the stat of earning income, I'm going to be able to have the potential to build more wealth because I can then save more, right? And then I can invest more. If I push on the stat of saving, if I save more money, right, then I have more money to invest. When I invest, it increases my income and it feeds into itself. When I push on the stat of investing, same thing. More money I invest, more money I earn, the more I can save, it feeds itself, right? So those are like, I'm going to say like black and white binary. If you do that, always it will be better. If you always earn more, it's always a better idea. If you always save more, it's always a better idea. If you always invest more, it's always a better idea. There's not really a question of like, should I, right? It's just granted, like, it's kind of like eating good, vegetables and fruits. It's just a good idea. Drinking water is just a good idea. Exercising is just a good idea, right? But on this triangle, these are the necessities. This is leaving out an area called expenses, right? Expenses. Expenses are not part of the triangle of wealth, meaning if I spend more money, it does not mean I'm going to be more wealthy, right? Do you see how that's not like a always or never statement? Earning income, always, right? Saving, always a good idea. Investing, always a good idea. Spending, circumstantial, right? And so with that, like, that's the reality and the truth and the fact of the matter. But what I struggled with and had to adapt my mindset around, and I think what a lot of us might struggle with too, as we're listening to this and watching this, is we tend to make spending an always or never statement, right? If we're frivolous, it's always spend the money, always spend it. If I want it, I can have it. There's no reason not to. If I can put it on credit, if I can finance it, if I've got it in my bank, I should, and I can, so I will, right? That's taking the expense, which is again, circumstantial, and turning it into an always statement. It's a fixed idea. Always do this, right? That's not always how it goes. Similarly, on the flip side, those of us that are like more conservative and we're more on the budgeting side and, monitoring our expenses, we tend to also make it a binary statement of, okay, never spend money, right? If I can get a discount, I should. If I can get it cheaper, I should. If I can avoid spending at all, I should. And again, that's also incorrect. It's a circumstantial statement. Should I spend? I don't know. Let me look at it. There's data that we have to look at and evaluate in order to determine, is this something that's helpful? Okay. So I want to cover that side of things first. We have this thing that we teach to our clients called the 1 to 5 game. Right. And this is a very good working way to be on a expense plan and monitoring expenses without being a budget nerd, without, having to whip out a spreadsheet and look at the budget and analyze everything to death. Right. So we teach that a 1, if you rate something as a 1, it was dumb, right? If it's dumb, we return it 100% of the time. If it was a dumb idea, I'm going to return it. It means there was no reason why I needed it. It was just stupid, right? We've all had dumb expenses. Okay. So we don't justify them. We don't keep them. We return them. We get rid of them. If it's a 2, that means it was bad timing. Different than dumb, right? So this is, again, something we still would return, but it's not under the category of a dumb idea. It's just something we didn't need right now. Okay. Meaning maybe later is better timing. It makes more sense at that point. Right. An example of that would be, some people have this FOMO of having to own a house. Right? I have to own a house. I have to buy a house. My parents have one. My siblings have one. Everyone in my church has one. My friends has one. I rent. The realtor that I know that wants to sell me the house says I'm paying my landlord's mortgage, right? And so I have to buy a house. Sometimes it's bad timing, right? If you're swimming in consumer debt, you don't have your emergency fund set aside, you don't have reserves put away. There's a chance, let me fix my wild hair here. There's a chance that if you buy the house, the water heater is going to break and you're not going to have the $10,000 put away to fix it. And that's actually going to harm you, right? So better timing would be down the road when I've gotten the debt taken care of and I have the reserves taken care of, and I could kind of self-insure against some of these things that might happen with a house. That might be a better time to buy one, right? So that would be an example of bad timing. 3s are a maybe. Really, maybe is not a real category, but we made it because sometimes, if you're married, you think it's a 5, your spouse thinks it's a 1. 5 plus 1 is 6. If we divide that by 2 people and the average it's a 3, it's a maybe. Instead of bickering about it, instead of being resentful, instead of arguing, let's set it on the back burner. We can come back to it later and make a decision, right? So maybe we still do have to decide ultimately, but we're going to do it at the end where we're not being emotional about the decision. We're not bickering. We're not doing whatever, right? 4s are needed for survival. Okay. And this is my definition of survival is not beans and rice. Okay. Survival is we'll go ahead and list them out. It's food, clothing, shelter, transport, health, and education. These are all vital for survival, right? So I have to do these 6 things no matter what. If I'm not doing these things, what am I? I'm starving, I'm naked, I'm homeless, I can't get around and go work, I can't produce income, I'm unhealthy, I'm dumb, right? So we want to make sure that we cover these things. So it's not just beans and rice, it's not just the bare necessities. These are all things we would consider are necessary to properly survive as a human being on this planet in this world, right? And then 5s are income producing. Okay, so we never return 4s and 5s, right? We never return these. Okay, and the reason being is like, all right, if I start beating myself up for going to the gym, right? Because again, this goes back to the penny pincher thing. Oh, the gym membership, it's $60 a month. I could cut that out and then I can save the 60. I'm just going to stop going to the gym, right? Well, for me, if I don't work out, I start getting sore. My production in work goes down. I lose energy. I start having aches and pains come up. I get sick. Different things can occur because I'm not taking care of my body, right? So that would be something. Food, like, okay, great. I can eat Totino's pizza and saltines and top ramen. Totally. And I would save a ton of money if I did that because it's cheaper, right? But that's not good for me. So if I'm not doing, let's say eating organic or, properly taking care of my nutrition, that's not good for me. It's not something I can build wealth with. Especially if you're in business, if you're an entrepreneur, a salesperson, or a high stress job like a doctor, accountant, engineer, construction worker, whatever it might be, you have to feed yourself. You have to be in good nutrition. Good. And then finally is income producing stuff. We would never return those. If something makes me money or if it could make me money, right? If it could make me money, it's tax deductible. If I have a business and I have an expense that could make me money, that's a tax deduction. I can write that off and that's reducing my taxes. And also it could make me money. So there's a chance that it actually increases my income. So I would never return that. I would always validate that. So with this being said, when we're in the moment of, okay, I'm going to spend money, right? These are the things we should be thinking. Is it a 1? Is it a 2? Is it a 4? Is it a 5, right? Again, 3, not really a category. If you're unsure, there's probably a reason. And that means it's probably a 1 or a 2 because you would instantly know, is it food, clothing, shelter, transportation, health, or education? Yes or no? Great. Good. So I have that. Is it income producing? Yes or no? That's an easy one to figure out as well, right? So if I've got that figured out and I'm in doubt and I'm thinking it's a maybe, okay, then it's probably a 1 or a 2, right? And if it's a 1 or a 2, I should just confront it's a 1 or a 2. This is a dumb idea or I don't need this right now. Okay, so this would be the thing that if I'm the penny pincher, right, I would tend from the penny pincher to be really good at not spending on these, right? I would be like, okay, I already know what's dumb. I already know what is a bad timing, right? I'm not going to do those. But I might look at a 4 or a 5 and I might be like, okay, well, I could figure out a way to go with that. I could figure out a way to not spend the cash on these areas and save the money instead. Okay, I'm telling you, this actually will hurt your wealth. It will slow you down. It's not good for you to do that. On the flip side, let me switch my pen here so we've got different colors. If I'm on the frivolous side, then I'm really good at doing these, right? I can look at something and say, oh, I need that, right? That's good for my survival. Okay, so that's easy, right? But I might have trouble with this. Okay, I might look at a dumb expense or a bad timing and figure out a way to justify, oh, this makes sense, right? So this is something that I've got to then be aware of. If I'm frivolous and I'm a spender, okay, great. I need to be better at looking at what's really a 1, what's really a 2, because it can't all be 4s and 5s, right? If I'm more on the penny pinching side, I need to be looking at, okay, well, what's actually, needed, because it can't all be 1s and 2s. I can't say I don't need anything. Okay, so that's the first thing I want to cover here, because that takes you out of, again, the binary. It's always or never. It's not. It's the 1 to 5 game. Where do you rate it? If it's in here, great. If it's in here, great. It just is what it is. Okay. So that's the first thing I want to cover. And this takes you again out of the space of being in mystery, being in doubt, putting off transactions, overloading on transactions. Because again, the number one step of being solvent is to earn more than we spend. Not to spend less than we earn, to earn more than we spend. Meaning if we want to spend a lot of money, we just have to earn more, right? You don't have to live below your means. You can just expand your means. I have more income, therefore I can live a better life. I like to eat organic. I know it's expensive. I also don't like to cook. So I like to order on an Uber Eats. I know that every time I buy a meal, it's going to cost me at least $30 just for me. I'm okay with that. I'm going to earn the income to afford that because that's the lifestyle I want and it helps me. Okay. There's no like this, there's no scarcity on earning income is my point, right? Like we printed, I think the statistic is 40% of all money printed, I believe, was printed in 2020. So there's tons of it. And I shouldn't say money because it's currency, right? 40% of all currency printed was printed, from 2020 until now. So we know that there's an abundance of currency out there. There's no shortage of it. It's, do I know how to go get it? Do I know how to use it once I get it? And I can create on that and do as much of that as I please. Okay. So this is the basic thing. But what I want to dive into next is large transactions. We'll call these large purchases. Because these are the ones that people tend to, I would say more times than not, veer away from. When I talk about large purchases, I'm actually talking about large purchases, not large loans. Like we're not saying I bought a car, but really it means that I got a $40,000 loan from the bank and I didn't buy the car, the bank did, and I'm borrowing it from them. That's different than purchasing. That's borrowing. You see? So when I say purchases, I'm saying you took cash and you bought a large item, a high dollar, high ticket item with your cash. Hopefully you used your sacred account to do this. But this is the one that we tend to look at and we constrict on. We're like, oh man, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of cash. I don't want to spend on that. Good. So I want to talk about that. Good. So what is currency? We have to go all the way back to what is currency. There's a difference between money and there's a difference between currency. We're talking about currency. We have this other thing called the triangle of conversion. So we have currency, which is what we earn in, right? Then we have money, which is what we store our value in. And then we have investments or assets, right? These are the things that then produce more income and supplement, and they give us more currency. So when I'm earning in currency, that is different than money. Those two things are not the same. Some of you guys might think this is really basic, but for a brand new person, they don't know this. I didn't know this. You didn't know this until you started studying and learning about it on our Wealth Dynamics material. Currency is a medium of exchange. Okay, it's a medium of exchange. It means that I have a thing that I can trade for another thing, right? I earn the currency by trading something for it, whether that be time or whether that be a task or whether that be a result or whether that be, some kind of a benefit or a production. I do that thing in exchange to get the currency. Okay. I now have the currency. The currency is simply the opportunity to exchange it again. Having lots of currency doesn't mean anything. It's the difference between active energy and energy that has potential. I think it's kinetic and potential energy, right? So we have energy when it's still and it's at rest. Sure, it has the potential to do something, but if I haven't done something with it yet, it literally has no value other than the potential of what it could do. Right? Once I do something with it, now it has value because the value is represented in the thing that I'm getting back from it. That's how currency works. Okay. Money is a store of value, meaning instead of accumulating lots of currency, I'm exchanging it. Again, I'm getting rid of the currency. I'm exchanging it for a store of value. Now, why would I do this? The reason why I would do this is because I want to accumulate enough to do an investment. So while I'm accumulating, I don't want to lose the purchasing power of the currency. So it's kind of like you have this pool of potential, right? You earn income from whatever you do. You've got this pool of currency, a pool of potential exchange. Every day you keep that pool and don't do something with it, you lose potential, meaning it exchanges literally for less and less and less every time. So what I would think about is I'd say, great, I have currency. Do I need to exchange it for something right now? Or am I going to keep it for an investment? I'm going to keep it for an investment. Good. Without any lag or pause or stop or waiting, I'm going to exchange that currency as quickly as possible for a real store of value so that I can accumulate it, keep and retain the value, hopefully build more on top of that. And then when it's time to invest, I get the full exchange value of the currency I earned. If I wait, let's say a month, okay, I've lost a month worth of exchange value. So when I do exchange that currency for money, I'm getting less. Right? I'm getting less store of value for the currency because I waited, right? Now, when I go to do the investment, I'm behind the eight ball because that currency that I exchanged for the money doesn't then translate into as much of an investment. So it takes me longer to build up and get into the investment. You guys see that? So that's an important thing to realize. Now, that's part one of this. Part two would be, again, if I'm at that split decision of I have currency, Do I spend it? Do I exchange it for a store value? If I spend it, right, that's also something I should do quickly. Meaning it's not, I don't have this long runway of, okay, I'm going to deliberate and think about it and analyze it and consider and all this other stuff. No, if I'm going to exchange it, good. I'm going to exchange it. Like, boom, it's done. Right now I get the maximum purchasing power. An example of that would be, again, with a house. Who here in the last 18 months considered buying a house or selling and buying a house? You waited a little bit and then you saw the increase in prices of the house. And you're like, man, I should have done this 6 months ago. Right? Maybe you saw it happen with vehicles. Right? That's an example. And again, it's not that the things are more valuable. It's that currency buys less of it. The units of exchange are reduced. Therefore, you don't get as much once you exchange them. So literally, if you're going to spend money, again, it goes back to, if you're going to spend currency, it goes back to, is it a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? If I decided it's a 4 or a 5 and I'm going to do it, I should have no consideration. I'm going to do it immediately and I'm going to make it happen quickly. And that transaction, instant, right? The amount of time that I insert into that transaction goes back to two things. It goes either one, and it could be both of them, but number one is my own lack of financial literacy, meaning I don't actually understand the mechanism that Jerry just explained. And so it's not real to me that the currency really does go down in purchasing power. So I hold on to it and I'm like, well, no one's sending me a bill saying I have less currency and then it doesn't hurt me when I do it. And I still can buy things. And I don't actually realize I lost buying power. So that would be financial literacy. The other one would be my own doubt that I can earn more income. I doubt if I spend the currency, I doubt that I can go get more. And so because of that, I insert time into spending the money and spending the currency. I'm like, okay, well, I need to wait. I need to think about it because I don't realize I can just go earn more. Whatever I did to earn it, I just need to do more of that thing and I'll get more of it back. There's no mystery there. That's how you earn currency. That's how you earn income. Right. So this even happens on investments. And I want to talk about this because this cycle, if we don't break this, when it comes time to invest, we're going to have a block there. Right. Because if we're training ourselves that every time we do a big transaction, whatever big means, that's subjective. For some people, that's $100. For some people, that's $10,000. Well, any investment you do with us is a minimum of 50,000. Right? So if I'm training myself that every time it's more than this number, let's say it's $5,000, every time it's more than $5,000, I have to insert time and I have to make it take a long time. And I've got to do all of this thinking and analyzing and talking to other people who have no context or education on what it is I'm doing and asking for their opinions, right? Then when it comes time to invest, I'm actually slowing my own financial freedom down because I'm going to see the price tag of 50,000 on the investment. I'm going to have the 50,000, but I'm going to say, I have to wait. Right. And it's kind of like I use this illustration of financial independence, right? Passive income greater than savings, expenses, and taxes. It's like breaking out of prison. And this would be like you get all the way up to the point of you're in the tunnel and you can leave the walls. And then you realize, oh man, I really like the lunch guy. I'm going to miss him. And my inmate, he's a cool guy too. Maybe I should go back. Maybe I should wait a couple of weeks and spend some more time with them. I can always revisit this thing. Right. No, why did you start in the first place? Why are you in the tunnel? You're in the tunnel because you wanted to break out of prison, right? So if you're in the tunnel and you're like, okay, great, I'm ready to invest, but now I've got to think about it and add all this time and all these arbitrary processes that I have to go through, you're lengthening the amount of time you stay in financial slavery, right? Nano Aquino on our team, he did a great call on Monday and he asked a question. I posted it on my Facebook today. If you're not financially free, what are you? And it's a rhetorical question, but there's only one answer. If you're not financially free, you're only one thing, which is a financial slave. You're in the prison system. How bad do you want to get out? That would be represented by your action. How quickly do you dig? How fast do you get out of the tunnel? Right? And so that little bit of doubt, again, can slow you down in financial freedom. Now, the other thing, these are different levels of this expense thing that I'm going through tonight. The other level of this is money happens in flows. Right. So when I'm bringing in income, when I'm saving in money, when I'm doing investments, all these things, they happen in flows. Right. So I have currency, which actually comes from the word current. Right. Current, you can have an electrical current. You have a current in a river, it's a stream or a creek and it flows. Right. So you have this flow happening. Okay. And so it's going in a definite direction. Like a current doesn't go in multiple directions. Right. So when I'm earning income, I'm flowing it forward. And the rate that the current flows forward is the velocity that it has. That's the momentum that it has. If I'm in that water, that's how fast it's moving, how powerful it is. All of those factors are based on all of the particles flowing in one direction. So I'm doing all this, right? I'm earning income, I'm flowing in this direction. I'm saving, flowing in this direction, investing, flowing in this direction. But when it comes to these purchases, if I have to stop, okay, what does that do? That's me stopping the particle. Now all of the particles are not flowing in one direction. I've got one or more particles that are either stuck, which means it's a barrier to all of these guys that are trying to get past it. It's going to stop the other flows. And in some cases, I might actually go backwards. Okay, who's ever had that happen where you're like doing really well, you're studying, you're training, you're doing the sacred account, you're doing the bullion, and then it's like, great, let's do credit dynamics or tax planning or on any number of our services. Like, okay, cool, that's a couple $1,000 to get started. All of a sudden it's like, oh, and we stop. And then we kind of revert backwards. We're not training as much now, right? We're not involved in the courses as much now. We're not doing the sacred account as much now. We're not working as hard to earn income like we had been before, right? And we actually revert back to the beginning and we go back and adopt the habits that got us into this mess in the first place. Okay. This stops the currency flow. It's not a flow if it's not flowing. A flow flows. If it stops, it's no longer a flow. It's no longer a current, right? So there's something to be said for, like rapidity of particle flow. If I'm going to save, I'm going to boom, I'm going to save. If I'm going to spend, boom, I'm going to spend. If I'm going to invest, boom, I'm going to invest. But what I have learned as a business owner is when it's a 5 or a 4, right? A 5 or a 4 specifically. You can see the same phenomena sometimes on 1s or 2, but the thing that I'm going to pinpoint here is when it's a 5 or a 4 specifically, and you flow out like a large amount of currency towards it, it actually brings more back, right? Those of you guys that are entrepreneurs, it's a great example. When you hire somebody and it's a good hire, what happens? Your income goes up almost simply because you spent it, right? So when I spend a large sum of money, somehow it shows up again. The same phenomena happens with giving. When I give a chunk of money, somehow, I don't know how, more comes back, right? And I think it's because I'm creating momentum. I'm putting more out so that more can come through, right? So I have a lot of dynamics happening here. I've got the stuff that already happened in this direction, right? Let's change our pen colors a little bit. I've got the stuff that's already been flowing and it's out in front of me. See, I've got that. I've got, the things that I'm, deliberating on and stopping that are causing this stop. And then I've also got things that could be happening that I'm maybe not even aware of yet. They're behind me. They've yet to actually happen. They've yet to actually show up in my life. When I stop and I focus on this group here, okay, I'm actually resting on my laurels. I'm thinking about, okay, well, I'm good. I've got these things happening out in front. Those are great. I've got so many blueprint phases under my belt. That's awesome. I'm saving and all. We're like, on participation trophy level at this point. I participated in the past, therefore in the present, I can stop, right? Well, when we stop, we're actually preventing these things from showing up. So I firmly believe when we get rid of these items, meaning we just freaking invest it or give it or spend it and just get it out of our universe and flowing forward, we've opened up space for this new stuff to show up and come in. Okay, this is not the law of attraction. This is not esoteric. This is not touchy-feely. Like, this is, in a very crude way, this is like almost like physics, right? If you create space, there's now an area for something else to show up. If I occupy the space, there's not an area for something else to show up. Think about it. In your life, you can look at this in different areas. If you make room for something in your house, there's more likely going to be something that shows up. If you're like, hey, I'm going to make room for a new piece of furniture. Now that there's space for it, I've increased the chance of that furniture actually being real and showing up. In my business, if I create, a job and I make a job description and I create training and I basically create like a little spot for someone to fill, I'm more likely to fill it. Right. So that's something we have to look at. And this really does come back around. So part of what I want to get at tonight, I did my car, right? I did the e-tron I told you guys about, but I pulled it on my social media and it was almost funny to see. A lot of people didn't think I bought it. I pulled, did I buy this? Yes or no? And I think more than 60% of people said, no, Jerry didn't buy it. Okay. And I thought that was humorous. And it told me that means a lot of our following thinks you shouldn't spend money on those things. Okay, let's look at this. Let's look at this. New car, right? Is it a 1, a 2, a 3, or a 4? Let's break this down. Okay. And I'll kind of walk you guys through how I did the transaction, not from a technical standpoint, just from a spending the cash standpoint. Was it dumb? Potentially buying a car could be dumb. I've made lots of dumb car decisions. In this case, it wasn't done. My purpose of the car was actually a business transaction. It was to have, a business vehicle. It was bought through my business. It's under the tax code, under the section 179, which is for my business, right? And so that would be a 5, right? So that means right off the bat, I know it's a 5. It's also a mode of transport, right? So that's going to be a 4. That's part of survival, right? Before I had transport, as you guys know, I was using Uber, Lyft. I live in Tampa, so everything is super close, right? But that's a mode of transport. So I looked at that and I was like, okay, good. I know it's a 5 and I know it's a 4. I know it's not a dumb decision. I know it's not bad timing. It's actually end of the year. It's when it has to happen, right? For me to get the tax deduction, it has to happen, boom, right before, usually before December 15th is when you need to make that move. So I did it, on like November 15th because I knew I needed it now. I had uses for it now. So that was a 4. That was a 5. Because it was a 4 or a 5, I immediately went into, okay, good. I've got currency. I've already exchanged the currency into money. Like I already had the vehicle was like $70,000, right? It wasn't a $300,000 Rolls Royce. To me, that would have been bad timing, right? Maybe not dumb because I could have used it for income, but that would have been bad timing. I don't need that right now. Good. So I know that I've already got the money set aside. I already did the exchange with the currency. And so now that I've got this, how quickly do I do this transaction? Right now, I researched the car probably for a year, right? I didn't test drive it. I was just reading about, okay, which part of the tax code am I going to apply this with? What model do I want? Do I want gas? Do I want electric? So that was me doing the research before I needed the car, right? We bought the car on last Saturday, right? And on Friday night, you can ask Lexi, we had no plan of buying a car, right? We knew that in like the next couple of weeks, we would need one, but it wasn't like, hey, we plan on going to the dealership tomorrow to buy a car. Friday night, I'm looking and the exact car that I needed shows up. I hadn't seen it in the area yet. It shows up. It's the exact make, model. It's the exact everything, right? And so I looked at it. I was like, okay, great. I already have the currency set aside in money and a store of value. It's in my sacred account. Everything is lined up. I already know it's a 4. I already know it's a 5. I've got all the facts that I need. So I'm going to jump into it. Right. And so Saturday morning, I woke up, I told Lexi, hey, I found the car that we're going to get. We're going to go to the dealership right now and go get it. Right. There was no lag. We showed up ready to go. All we needed to do was test drive it to make sure it ran. We liked it. All those things that you get the fuels for the vehicle when you show up at the dealership. Right. So we showed up at the dealership. We did all that. Nobody had to close us. There was no, I need to think about it. There was no, I need a private dialogue with my wife or my spouse before we talk to the salesperson. None of that. Like we're just sitting there, it's like, great, everything lines up. We don't even need to talk about financing because we're going to use our sacred accounts. We're going to basically self-finance this thing in the long run. And so immediately we just signed the paperwork and drove out with the car that day. Okay. All of this happened on Saturday. Friday night, I saw the car. I knew it existed. Saturday, I told Lexi, we're going to go get it. We show up and get it. Boom. Saturday night, we leave with the car. Right. So with that being said, once I did that, now I have, let's scroll back down, space freed up, right? And I wasn't really like stuck on it or worried about it, but I was doing research and I had attention units on, okay, I know I'm going to need to get a car soon, right? This is now flowing forward. And now I have all these other particles that are coming in and they're filling up this space, new opportunities, right? New flows of income, new sources, new things, right? And so this is like with currency, when we stagnate, we actually hold our wealth back. Whether it's a $70,000 vehicle purchase or whether it's, a $2,000 tax planning, or whether it's spending $30 on organic, groceries and vegetables instead of buying the cheap ones for $15, right? Flowing forward, especially when it's pro survival, that would be a 4 or a 5, will always open up more opportunity every time without any variance. It's going to do that. Okay. And it's one of those things that you just have to have faith that is how it works. It's a law of energy, right? So what I want to get across is, for all of us, it doesn't mean you need to buy a $70,000 vehicle. It doesn't mean that you need to go donate $100,000, but there's probably one thing at least that every single one of us is sitting on right now that we've been thinking about, We know it's a good idea. We're unsure about it. And we know that we just need to pull the trigger and make it happen, right? Whether that's, a step with Wealth Dynamics on our blueprint, or whether that's, a vehicle, or whether that's a home, or whether that's a donation, or whether that's a trip, or whatever it might be. And I want to give you permission tonight, like, do the 1 to 5 game on it first. That way you can validate, yes, it's a good idea, or no, it's not a good idea. Run it through this conversion triangle. Do I have the currency, right? If I have the currency, how far out is this transaction? If it's more than a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to push it into a store of value until it's ready, right? If it's now, I'm going to like, boom, I might push it into my sacred account, but immediately I'm going to go buy the thing, right? But if I push it through this triangle of currency and money and investment, that speeds up the particle flow. And then realize you might not have it tap you on the shoulder like, hey, I'm a missed opportunity that hasn't happened yet. You should do this transaction. It might not be that blatant, but it exists. So when it happens and you do the transaction, I want you to start looking for opportunity. Part of filling the space is actually taking responsibility for filling. Okay, and that's the other part that I want to put here. This is almost like creating a game, right? Because when I get, like when I get 6 months of reserves, right? And then I get 6 months of credit and I have that set aside. And then I get, let's say a bunch of gold and silver. And I start funding some different sacred accounts. It can start to become a game of, okay, I'm comfortable. I've talked about this before. I'm comfortable. And it's really easy to just stay where I'm at and not make progress. Because this is, whatever it is, the most I've ever saved, or the least debt that I've ever had, or whatever the achievement or the notch on my belt is. It goes back to, again, resting on our laurels with the stuff that we've already done, right? But when we do this, it actually creates a circumstance where we can get comfortable and we can get complacent and we can get bored. And that's where we start to lose progress. And that's where we start to stagnate, right? So when I take, let's say I have all this built up, and I'm not ever going to really dive into this. This is off limits, but let's say I take my chunk here and I get rid of it by exchanging it for an investment or a car or a home or whatever it might be. Now I have the game of replenishing it, right? If you're doing the sacred account, you're doing 2 games. You're self-financing, meaning you have the game of paying yourself back, right? Like I actually have to like pay payments to myself. That's now a new responsibility. And then I've also got to replace the funds that were there. I've got to go create more. And so that creates necessity. It's called income necessity. The need to go earn more income, the need to go back to the very top of this triangle and go produce more. Right. And what I love about this is if you're following our ways of doing this, producing more means adding value. It means exchanging value with others. Right. We have another triangle called the triangle of exchange, or the triangle of income. It's knowledge, value, exchange. Meaning if I need to go earn more income, I need to go study and get knowledge so that I'm valuable. And then I actually need to get in communication with another person or another group and exchange the value with them to get the currency, right? That helps everybody. That's like the laws of economics are at play there. Supply and demand. I'm supplying a need. I'm helping other people. And that's good for me. It's good for them. It's good for their families. It's creating more for everyone. Which means if I'm not doing that, I'm actually preventing more being created for everyone. I'm stopping that. Okay, because now let's say with my car, I've got to go earn, let's say $70,000 to replenish what I spent on the car. Not a big deal. I can do that very quickly. But the act of doing that means I'm going to help all you guys. And it means that I'm going to help more people and I'm going to get more clients. And I'm going to provide more value and more services and deliver more. And that's better. And that's actually, for me, that's better than actually the income that I earn, because I like helping people. I think the value that I deliver is more important than the currency that I get in return. And I think by delivering the value, more currency is going to show up. It goes back to, again, these opportunities that are in the rearview mirror that we don't know about yet. They're not, again, it's not the law of attraction. It's not magic where you rub your lucky rabbit's foot and more currency and more opportunities show up. No, you have the responsibility of filling this space. Go back here and push things forward to fill the space with. And that is a responsibility. It's something that I have to realize I have to do. It's an action. Right? Which means I have to get off my laurels. I have to get out of my ivory tower. I've got to go help people. I've got to get on the ground. I've got to go get uncomfortable. I've got to have weird conversations. If I'm a salesperson, I've got to go call more people. If I'm an hourly worker, I've got to put in more time at whatever it might be. Right? But at the end of the day, what are you going to do instead? Right? What are you going to do instead? Watch Netflix, stay home, Like what would you rather do than adding more value to people? Right. And as long as you're not financially free, if you're not financially independent yet, that's what you should be doing. Right. If you're locked up in the prison and you're like, okay, great. My plan is to escape. My plan is to get out. Well, while I'm in there, what can I be doing? I can be helping. I can be, adding value to others. I can be teaching them what I'm doing, right? I can be doing all sorts of things to make myself valuable so that I actually am there contributing so that when I leave, I know I left the place better than I found it. Right? Because we're all born into this financial system without any permission. No one taps you on the shoulder as an infant and says, "Hey, I know you're a newborn, but you're going to have this responsibility of earning income so that the income can be taxed, so that the revenue from the tax can go pay the debt to the Federal Reserve Bank because you're actually owned." Nobody says that. Like, you don't learn that. This might be the first time you're ever hearing that. It's the reality. And so if we don't confront that, okay, great. I am in financial slavery. I do need to break out. It's going to take some time. Like we talked about last week, like we do have to go through a sequence to do it. Right. And so while I'm here, I'm going to be valuable. I'm going to be the best person I can be. I'm going to add value and I'm going to make sure that I leave an impact. And then that builds up the habit. Because when you leave, it goes back to what we talked about last week. Why are you going to be financially independent? I hope it's not so that you can sit on the beach all day and travel in your RV and add no value to anybody. So if I haven't been practicing adding value to other people while I'm not financially free, what makes me think all of a sudden it's going to be different when I am? Right? I'm going to practice the same behaviors that I had. It's that old adage of money just amplifies what you already are. So if I am a consumer and I'm lazy and I'm self-centered and I don't help people and I don't give and I don't add value, when I get more wealth, it's just going to be more of that. Like, I'm just going to do more of my own stuff. I'm going to build my own little prison in isolation. Right? This is why we hear these myths of, the person whose family member got rich and they turned into an asshole. The dude was already an asshole. He just got money. Like, you didn't know it yet because he didn't have the power to express himself through finances. Now he does. We all know he's an asshole. He already was before. Right? If I take a good person, I give them wealth and they earn it, they're going to do more of the good things they already did. Okay, because I'm not out to help someone have a 40-year vacation the rest of their life. That's not why we're financially free. We have a responsibility that when we're financially free, to help others get financially free and to add more value. And the problem with this is, and it doesn't matter what your political stance is or any of that, the money is in the hands of the wrong people right now. The bad people have the most of the money. You look at, again, banks, Wall Street, and the IRS. That's where the majority of the money is. Right? You can look at other, big pharma, tech companies, like these kind of suppressive groups that aren't doing great things and they're impinging on people's rights, freedoms, etc. That's who has all the money. That's why when you look around the world right now, it doesn't look right. Right? And we can all see that. We can be like, that's not good. That's not okay. That's not right. The reason being is the wrong people have all the money. So if I have figured out how to get the money and the wealth, it's my responsibility to teach the other good people in the world to get it as well, so we can turn the tide. What if all of the good people had the money? Right? We wouldn't have the stuff we have happening. We would have good things happening instead of bad things happening. Because again, money and finance and wealth amplifies what somebody already is. Okay. So all of this connects back to, what is it that I do with my finances once I get them? Okay. And it also is part of, again, the production. How is it that I'm getting them? I was talking to someone today and I basically told them, like, dude, you're basically prostituting your time for a paycheck. You could be doing a lot more. You've got so much talent and skill. This person invests in themselves heavily, and to just be doing, whatever it is to get just a paycheck, and it's not helping very many people, and it's, just like a paycheck, right? All of us could do that. I could do that, right? But if I wasn't involved in the lives of the people that I'm involved in and helping, like, I wouldn't be making an impact. And to that degree, I'm not wealthy. Right? Because what is wealth? Wealth is abundance and prosperity in all areas of life, the entire thing. Right? Which would mean I'm abundantly prosperous in the value that I exchange with others. And again, wealth is a gradient scale. We talk about wealth is not a one and done. It's not a destination or a milestone. I can get more and more and more wealthy and more financially free. So when I take that concept and I put that on, okay, helping people, I could always help more and more people. What's stopping me? Usually money is at the top of the list. finance is at the top of the list, right? You could apply that with, again, expenses, right? I want to be wealthy in my expenses. I want to own nice things. I want to give nice things. I want to be able to, like, be an example of, if you work hard, you can drive a nice car, you can live in a nice place, you can travel, you can do this, you can do that, because it's an ideal scene that all of us want. Everyone would look at that in some way and say, okay, I want to aspire to that to some level, right? And so that's even something I would look at and say, that's a definition of wealth, right? So when I think about it, really is abundance and prosperity in all of the areas, right? In all of the areas of my life. Expenses have to be one of them. I have to be abundant and prosperous in my expenses. No different than my income, no different than my saving, no different than in my investing. And there's two ways I would go about that. There's the quality of my expenses. This goes back to, again, 4s and 5s, right? And there's also the quantity. How much and how often do I do it? Right? Like when I bought the car, right? The salesman made a commission. He's probably going to have more money for his family for Christmas. That's freaking awesome. I'm not in the deal. Like, I'm not the guy when I go to the dealership, I try and talk you down on the price. Your price is your price. If I think I'm getting the value that I want of it, I'll pay whatever I think is fair. And if it's fair, great. In this case, I thought that was fair. And I'm happy that I exchanged in a way where that guy's going to be able to have a commission, and probably that's going to go towards Christmas presents and different things that help his family out. That's phenomenal, right? The dealership, they made some money. They can go make more great cars now. Right? So there's the quality and the quantity. So if I'm like always doing 4s and 5s and it's frequent, I'm actually going to feel better. Right? Like I actually felt happy when I spent the money. I was like, man, that was awesome. It feels good to spend $70,000. If you haven't done it, I recommend you try it. Don't do it out of sequence, but when you have the money to do so and you have the assets to do so, do it. It feels great. Okay? Because I know I'm going to go produce more and do all the things I talked about. If I'm only doing it once in a while, though, it's going to look like this. I have a screaming affluence. I spent the bunch. I did a 4 or 5. It was great. I helped a bunch of people. I exchanged. I feel good. Boom. Now I crash and I stay here for who knows how long. That's not abundantly prosperous. Right? So it's kind of a game, right? And I relate this. I'm going to wrap up here. I relate this to when I was a kid. Who else used to stick their finger in the outlet? Anyone else? I did. I did fingers, screwdrivers. I don't know what my infatuation was with the outlet. But I learned if I grab my little brother, I don't get shocked. He does. Right. And it's kind of like that with money. Money is a current. So if I put my finger in the outlet of earning currency and I don't immediately exchange it to something else, it actually hurts me because it's now accumulating on me. It's not something that I want to have accumulated on me. Right. You'll see, like, for example, people that have lots and lots of cash stored up. A lot of times you'll see that they're stressed out about it. They don't know what they're going to do with it. They're worried about taxes, right? Sometimes they're unhappy. Celebrities have this happen. They get into drugs, they get into alcohol, they get into all sorts of things because it's actually a problem for them to have that much stored energy. Money is energy. Income is energy. So when I store up that much energy and I don't exchange it and I don't direct it, it is the equivalent of me sticking my finger in the light socket and not grabbing something else to either exchange it or ground it. Right? Grounding it would be like putting it into a store of value. I have, some rubber and I'm fine, right? Exchanging it, grab my little brother. He got shocked instead. Bad example because he got shocked. Hopefully he grabbed something else, right? But that's my point is we have to have these exchanges. And even though it's very physical, we've had the idea of currency because that's all currency really is. It's a medium of exchange. It's an idea and it's backed by our confidence, right? So it's an idea. We have had it converted into pieces of paper, pieces of metal, digits. And it's like this very physical thing, but it's not a physical thing. It's an idea and it's an energy thing. And so if I treat currency and I treat income and I treat finances based on the laws of physics, like the physical universe, like this cup, it's actually harder for me. Right? Because this is like gravity and it's got all these definite rules and there's things I can and cannot do with the cup factually. Right? But if it's an idea, I can do anything with an idea. There's no limitation, right? If it's energy, I can do all sorts of things with energy. I can change it. I can convert it. I can send it somewhere else. I can pull it back in and it becomes this thing. And it's actually like a superpower is what it is. It's like a game I can play. Right. So that's what I wanted to cover tonight. And I say this because it's the end of the year, right? Two things are happening end of year. Number one, it's Christmas time. Okay. Go earn lots of income. so you can have a great Christmas with your family, right? Buy the gifts for your kids that you know that they want, because that makes you feel better. It makes them feel better. That's a perfect example, right? So earn a lot. Don't think about it. If it's a 4 or 5, great. Like figure out how I can make things 4s and 5s, right? If it's just straight up, I'm going to give it, then that's not even in this category. That's just giving. Giving is great. Good. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is end of the year. It's also tax planning season. To reduce our income, sometimes we're going to need to make moves and spend on things that are larger than usual, maybe out of the ordinary, like my car, to reduce my taxable income. And the longer I wait and the longer I make it a painful decision and I prolong it, it's just going to make it harder and harder to do. Okay. So those are the 2 things I want you thinking with this course as we're rolling into the holiday season. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open this up for some questions. So if you're on Facebook, I would like you to drop your comments. If you're on Zoom, throw them down in the chat. We'll go live and talk about them in a second. But again, good to see everybody. If you have not shared this stream already, go ahead and share it. Make sure that you get this out there. All right, good to see everybody on the stream. Justin, good to see you. Todd, good to see you. Todd says the e-tron was a 5 on the 1 to 5 scale, precisely. Daniel Wright says currency acts similarly to momentum. Good points. Very true. Thank you. So Justin says, I told a friend of mine that I was working on being financially free. When he said, when that happens, you will quit what you were doing, won't you? Justin's saying, I replied, I said, I will keep doing what I'm doing now because what I do now allows me to invest in so many people. Financial freedom will just allow me to invest in more people yet. That's an excellent point. For me, financial freedom, like I'm not going to like retire from Wealth Dynamics, right? Like that's not something I would do, but it allows me to be less selfish. I don't have to think about my bills. I don't have to think about my life. I can focus on just yours because my stuff's taken care of whether I do it or not. And I can just focus on creating and helping and doing all this great stuff. So excellent point by Justin there. Let's check our Zoom chat. Let's see if we have any questions here on Zoom. Keith has an awesome comment. I'll get to Keith's comment in a second. Ken says, good to see you again, Jerry. Thanks for having me on this. That's great. Good to see you too, Ken. Or I guess not see you, but to know that you're here and enjoying the info. John says, outstanding info. I need to buy your books. John, you are correct. So you can get the Big 3 Challenge Journal. You can also get Blueprint to Financial Freedom, and you can get How to Create Wealth. I believe if you go to jerryfetta.com/Christmas, I think is the link. Okay, jerryfetta.com/Christmas. You can get all 3 of these plus Wealth Dynamics University for a great deal. We give an awesome holiday discount for that. Do you have Google Docs with all your trainings I can purchase? So John, if you get the university, you can actually get all of the trainings. They're all there. And I'll bring John on live really quick too, because I want to answer any questions John might have. Let me make sure I'm spelling John's name right. John, John. I think John may have logged out already. Yeah, but I think John left. Okay, no worries. So if you're watching the replay, John, if you go to that link and you get Wealth Dynamics University, that actually includes all of the trainings we've ever done. I think we're up to about 400 different segments on finance. I have not seen or heard of a more extensive library of financial training. Mark says, I thought maybe you leased the e-tron. That's a good point. So leasing, basically you're just financing the depreciation. The reason why I decided to buy instead of lease, with leasing, I can only write off the payments as they come, right? So the payment on it, if I leased it, probably would have been around $1,000. I would have gotten a $1,000 deduction in December, and then another one in January and February, and so on to the end of the lease. But I can't stack it up and accumulate it. So by doing the financing, by purchasing it on the 179, I can actually write off the entire purchase price at once. So I was able to reduce my taxable income by that lump sum because it all happened in December, right? So that's the big reason behind that. The other factor too is, are you going to self-finance it or not? If I'm self-financing it, then I have the sacred account that I've borrowed against depreciating, right? Plus I've got the payments I'm making. I've got the tax deduction. I've got the resale value of the car. So my math on it is, I think I'm actually going to make about I think it's about a 10.2% return annually on owning and self-financing the car. So at that point, it's not even an expense. It literally is an investment, right? Like it's gonna make me a positive rate of return, which is unheard of on a vehicle. John asked, was the car new? The car technically it was a 2021. The 2022 was about to come out. It's backlogged because of all the supply and demand issues, but there was no 2022 ones in stock. Otherwise, I may have gotten a new one. Generally speaking, I like to buy, if I'm going to buy, I like to buy 2 years old just because it gets rid of some of the depreciation. Most of that happens on the front end. But this was such a, like if you look at an e-tron Sportback, it's like a white elephant. Like you don't see them very often. And so that was something where it was already hard to find one in stock. Keith, I'm going to bring Keith on live just so he can announce his offer to everybody, because I think it's a great offer. All right, let's see if we can get Keith on live here. Okay, Keith may not have a microphone. I'll go ahead and tell you what Keith wrote. Keith says, if anyone purchased gold or silver, like precious metals, and you felt like it was a 2, like bad timing, Keith says you can return it to him. Okay, so that offer stands if anyone has purchased gold and silver and felt like the timing was bad, or if it was a 1 or a 2, Keith will take it, DM him, and he will make sure that he handles that for you. That's hilarious. Good. I think that's all the questions I see. Let me just pull up Facebook one more time and see if we have any questions there. Good. I don't see any other questions on Facebook. Good. So before we log out, guys, tomorrow I have a webinar happening at 4 p.m. Eastern time. It's on how to stay productive during the holidays. This goes back again to earning the income, right? How do we earn income? How do we make sure that our stats don't crash during the holiday season? Used to happen to me all the time. And it came to a point where I actually was kind of like fearful of the holiday season. I was like, oh man, my sales are going to drop and my stats are going to crash. And I figured out how to work around that. And there's a couple of pieces of information that I use in my own life that make the holidays productive, and actually some of my most productive time during the year. And also I still have fun. I still do Christmas. I still hang out. I still travel. I still do all the fun things of the holiday season. That's tomorrow at 4 p.m. You can DM myself, Nano, Jazwan, if you'd like to log in and check that out tomorrow. Lastly, if you have not gotten a copy of my book, you can get Blueprint to Financial Freedom. If you go to jerryfetta.com/B2F, again, that's the letter B, the number 2, the letter F, you can get a copy of that book. This is a great starting point if you're brand new and you want to learn how do I actually build wealth in the right sequence. I think that's all we have for tonight. So guys, I'm going to log out here. We will be back again next week, same time, 7 p.m. I hope that this gave you some insight. If you're interested in doing end of year expenses, tax planning, purchases, reach out to us. We can help with that. If it's something you want to do with us, great. If it's just something you have questions on, if it's like a car or a house or whatever, that's what we're here for, to help you as a client. So be sure to reach out to us on that. Other than that, we will sign out. Have a fantastic weekend, and I will see you guys all next Friday night.